I can't raise a black child. He left me pregnant and met his son in the operating room. The sentence that cut the room in half. I can't raise a black child. The sentence didn't just land, it detonated. It wasn't shouted. It was whispered careful private, like a confession made to the wrong God at the worst altar. If you find value in real stories told with clarity and truth, make sure to subscribe to stay informed with Left Woman Loud. Present. Fluorescent lights, disinfectant and dread. Ray sat on the edge of the OB triage bed paper gown, crackling the monitor steady as a metronome. She was 33 weeks and a lifetime tired. He stood near the sink, hands braced on cheap laminate. Liam, the man who had promised a future that tasted like clean air. The man who now looked at the same air and said it was too heavy for him to breathe. Ray's hand found her stomach. The baby rolled like a tide turning. "You're joking," she said, but it wasn't a question. It was a reach for a reality that refused to be near her. Liam's eyes darted to the door, to the nurse station beyond, to the world where people said polite things and didn't say what he had just said. "I'm not equipped," he managed. "My family, my town, this would destroy us. I didn't think it would get this far, into her body, into a heartbeat on a screen, into a future that already had a name in her head. August if he came in summer, Eden if she needed the reminder that beginnings bloom in ruined places." "What are you saying?" Ray asked, throat raw. "Say the whole sentence, Liam." He did. "I'm leaving." The monitor kept time. Everything else stopped, passed. The first time Ray saw him, she'd laughed at how careful he was with words. A grad seminar on narrative ethics. He'd said stories were our first mirrors and our last witnesses. He'd fallen in love with her laughter the way some people fall in love with weather, so sudden they blame the season. He'd called her brilliance unignorable. He'd called their differences interesting. He'd called the city neutral ground. He'd never called her reality by its name. Later, at her mother's kitchen table in Baltimore, Ray would tell this part honestly. She liked the way he listened. She didn't hear the part where he edited. She mistook editing for care. Present again. The OB resident cleared her throat from the doorway the way doctors do when they have to enter a room they didn't consent to be in. "We need to decide about the steroid shots, Ms. Porter," she said gently, "to help his lungs if he comes early." His. Ray swallowed the pronoun like a psalm. "Yes," she said. "Do it." Liam didn't move. He looked at the resident as if she might translate him into a softer language. She didn't. When they were alone again, Ray spoke without looking at him. "If you walk out that door, you don't walk back in because it's convenient. This isn't a season, it's a person." He flinched. It was the first decent thing he did all day. Ray's mother, Viv, arrived like storm weather, fast, inevitable, filling the space with a competence she never apologized for. She hugged Ray first and asked questions second. Then she turned to Liam. "You're leaving my daughter because you've decided my grandchild is an inconvenience?" Viv asked, voice calm enough to frighten God. Liam tried words. They tripped. I'm saying I can't raise, finish it," Viv said, eyes steady. "Say what you mean to the woman you made a mother." He couldn't. Cowardice is a language that dies under direct light. "Go," Viv said softly. "We've got it." He did. Ray watched the door close and felt something slide into place inside her. Not hardness, something older. A vow her grandmother used to make over greens and cornbread. "We keep our own." Ray, at 8, hair freshly braided, standing on a church basement stage reciting Langston Hughes. What happens to a dream deferred while her grandmother clapped on 2 and 4 like the world's rhythm depended on her hands, because maybe it did. Her grandmother's whisper at bedtime that week, "You don't have to take everyone with you, baby. Just make sure you take yourself." Ray thought of that now and pressed her palm to the place the baby pressed back. "I'm taking you." The steroid shot burned. She didn't wince. Viv squeezed her fingers anyway. "Breathe," her mother said. "We'll build the rest on that." Between the triage curtains came the sounds of other stories, a laugh too loud, a prayer too quiet, a nurse saying sorry for the 3rd time. Ray cataloged them like beads on a string. This is how she survived most things, counting the world until it felt countable. The fetal monitor hiccuped, then steadied. The resident smiled. "Doing fine," she said. "You both are," liar, Ray thought, but kindly. At home that night, Viv made tea like tea could repair a world. Ray sat at the kitchen table and texted no one. The phone stayed blank as a confession booth. "I'm not strong," she said finally. Viv leaned against the counter. "Good. Strong makes people expect you to do miracles on an empty stomach. You don't need that right now. You need a plan." Ray laughed once. It cracked. What plan exists for being left because your child is black? Viv's face shifted. Not surprise. Recognition. You remember when your father's cousin got sick and folks from his job sent grocery cards instead of showing up? That's the shape of some apologies. They send what costs them least. Ray looked down at her hands. He said his family would never accept me. Viv nodded. Then thank them for telling you who they are before they had your son's face to practice on. Silence softened around them. The kettle clicked off. Viv poured, then sat. "What if I can't do it?" Ray asked the steam. "What if I can't raise him alone?" Viv's hand covered hers. "Baby, you won't. We will." Ray believed her because she had to, and because history lives in kitchens where women keep saying we. 3 weeks slid by like wet glass. Ray counted kicks and appointments and ways to avoid seeing Liam on campus. She blocked his number and unblocked it and blocked it again. She bought a crib she could assemble without swearing too loudly. She learned to sleep on her left side and to ignore strangers' hands moving toward her belly. She wrote in a notebook, "August. Eden, if you choose me, I'll choose you back. Every day." Then on a Tuesday at 5:19 a.m., her water broke in a small, humiliating flood that soaked hope and fear in equal measure. "Grab the bag," she told Viv, and Viv was already moving. At the hospital, triage turned into a room with a view of the parking lot and a clock that refused to mind its own business. Labor is a language the body remembers even if you never spoke it. Ray learned it fast. Between contractions, the resident said the words Ray had been both waiting for and trying not to need. "Do you have a support person to list?" Ray said, "My mother." The resident nodded, pen scritching. And the father Ray stared at the ceiling tile with the hairline crack. No, the monitor told the truth her voice couldn't. By noon, pain braided itself into purpose. Viv wiped Ray's forehead with a cold cloth and told old stories like spells. Ray swore once, laughed twice. She felt split and held at the same time like the world when the sky breaks and then apologizes with sun. 10 centimeters, the nurse announced, voice triumphant like good gossip. "It's time. Time." Ray gripped the rails. "I've got you, little one." The room rearranged itself, lights metal in tension. Viv kissed Ray's temple, then moved to her shoulder anchor and horizon. "Push," someone said, and Ray did the closest thing to holy she'd ever do. The door opened mid-contraction. A gasp. A voice Ray knew like a song she regretted learning. "Ray." She didn't look. She didn't have time to hate. "What is he doing here?" Viv asked, a blade hidden in a whisper. The nurse turned defensive. "Only 2 guests." "I'm not a guest," Liam said, breathless. "I'm the father." The room pulsed. The monitor kept time. Ray wanted to throw a star at his head. She wanted to ignore him until he dissolved into a lesson. Another contraction crushed language. Ray bore down on a world that had refused to hold her. When it eased, she opened her eyes. Liam stood against the wall, white-knuckled, as if the sight of consequence had just introduced itself to him and declined to shake hands. "Get out," Ray managed. He didn't move. "I'm sorry," he said the first time he'd used the word with more than air under it. I don't know what I thought. I shouldn't be here. His jaw trembled. I needed to see him." "Earn that," Viv said. "Push," the nurse said again. The room narrowed to a point and then widened into sound. A Krythan, furious, gorgeous. Ray's body became history and future and the place where both meet. They put him on her chest. Warm, slippery, real. Ray wept like a dam failing in a drought that deserved rain. "Hi," she whispered. "I've been waiting for you." Liam made a sound she didn't recognize in him. Awe, maybe. Or regret that had finally found shape. The pediatric nurse reached to lift the baby to the warmer, and Ray's eyes followed the path like a prayer. The monitor hiccuped. Someone frowned. "Just a quick look," the nurse promised. "He's a little dusky." Ray's heart stuttered. "Dusky oxygen," the resident said softly. "We'll help him breathe while he remembers he knows how." They wheeled the warmer toward the corner. Liam took a step as if pulled by a chord he hadn't earned the right to hear. Don't touch him, Viv warned, but it was tired and he didn't. A respiratory tech fitted a tiny mask. The baby protested in squeaks that sounded like the beginning of arguments Ray hoped he'd win. The resident glanced at the door. "NICU on standby," she asked the nurse. "Standby." Ray's palms went cold. "Is he okay?" "Yes," the resident said quickly. "We're just being careful." The door swung open again. 2 people in soft blue. A team. The word NICU stitched on a chest like a promise and a threat. And behind them, Ray couldn't decide if she was seeing a person or a ghost, stood a woman she'd never met, and yet suddenly brutally recognized. Same mouth, same eyes, same stubborn, tender line to the jaw that Ray had traced in the mirror her whole life. The woman's badge read Dr. Porter, Neonatology. Her mother whispered, "Lord, have mercy." Liam looked from doctor to Ray and back, confusion blotting his face. Ms. Porter, the neonatologist, asked, voice steady as a tide. "I'm Dr. Porter. I'm your father's sister, Aunt." The father Ray had never claimed. The man who left before she learned to spell disappointment. A sister he never mentioned. A name that belonged to her but not in any way that had fed her. The room tilted. The baby wailed. And Ray understood 2 things at once. Her son had walked into a world already braided with abandonment and arrival. And she had just met the first person who could help him breathe, who also knew exactly how hard it is to learn. The letter she never wanted. The NICU team worked like a storm rehearsed. Hands moved, monitors blinked, and tiny cries broke the air like punctuation marks Ray couldn't yet read. Her son's chest rose under the mask, stubborn and small, reminding her that breath is not guaranteed but taken wrestled. Dr. Porter, her aunt, moved with a calm authority that shook Ray more than panic could. Heart rate stable, oxygen rising. "He's responding," she said, voice warm but clinical, as if she didn't notice Ray's eyes locked on her like a drowning woman watching someone else swim. Viv whispered beside Ray, "See, he's a fighter." But Ray didn't answer. Her mind couldn't hold relief and recognition at once. Her aunt, a porter. Here, Ray, 12 years old, at a middle school heritage project. Every other kid brought photos, flags, recipes. Ray brought silence. When she asked her mother about her father's side, Viv had pressed lips into a line and said, "He's not a man who deserves a project." That night, Ray had written her report on resilience instead of family tree. Now in the delivery room, a stranger with her face and her last name was saving her son. The baby's cry shifted, louder, angrier, alive. The nurse cheered. Viv's shoulders slumped in relief. Ray sobbed without permission. Dr. Porter turned, mask pulled down, eyes soft. "He's strong. He'll need a short stay in the NICU, but he's going to be okay." Okay. The word carried like gospel, but Ray couldn't receive it fully because she saw something else in the doctor's other hand. A sealed envelope, edges worn Ray's own name, written in a script she knew only from the return address on old unopened birthday cards. Her father's handwriting. "Why do you have that?" Ray's voice cracked sharp. Dr. Porter hesitated. "Because he wanted you to have it. He gave it to me before he passed." The room folded in on itself. Viv stiffened like stone. "You don't get to bring his ghost in here," she snapped. Ray clutched the bedrail, torn between the baby's cry and the letter's weight. Her heart split, one half pressed to her son, the other dragged toward the man who'd walked out before she was born. Later in the NICU, Ray sat scrubbed in and silent. The baby slept in a clear box, wires a cruel imitation of a womb. She slipped her hand through the porthole, 2 fingers resting against his impossibly small palm. Beside her, Viv muttered prayers under her breath. Behind her, Liam hovered awkward, ashamed, an intruder in his own story. And at the doorway stood Dr. Porter, envelope still in hand. "Don't," Viv said again, sharper now. "She doesn't need that poison." But Ray's voice, quiet and hoarse, surprised even her. "I do." Back home in the dark hush of 2 a.m., Ray sat at her kitchen table, baby's monitor glowing nearby. Viv dozed on the couch, worn out from holding everyone up. The letter lay in front of her. The name Ray Porter scrawled on the front like a dare. Her hand shook as she tore it open. Inside, 3 pages, yellowed, slightly ink bled at the edges. "Ray," it began. "I was never strong enough to stand in the same room with my mistakes. But I see you anyway. I've always seen you. And one day you'll see me in the mirror and hate it. I don't blame you, but I hope one day you'll forgive what I couldn't fix." Her throat burned. She wanted to fling the pages into the trash, but her eyes dragged lower to the last lines. "If you ever have a child, tell them I'm sorry. And tell them they will never be abandoned by me because I will live in the hands that hold them. In yours." Ray pressed the letter flat with her palm. Her tears fell on the ink, blurring in yours into something unreadable. She whispered to the sleeping baby in the next room, "You'll never need him. You'll only need me." But even as she said it, the letter's weight stayed in her hand, heavy as inheritance. The promise he shouldn't have made. The letter didn't leave Ray's kitchen table. She tried moving it to the counter, to a drawer, to the trash can. Every time it found its way back to where her coffee cup sat, daring her to read the words again. She hadn't told Liam what it said. She hadn't told her mother either. But the look Liam gave the letter in the hospital replayed in her head like an unfinished song. Not confusion, not surprise, recognition. 8 months earlier, a lecture hall. Liam waiting for his advisor, restless, running hands through his hair like he did when secrets pressed too close. A man in his 60s approached. Sharp suit, heavy eyes. Liam Bennett, yes. The man's hand extended. David Porter. Liam blinked. He'd heard the name in fragments usually when Ray laughed bitterly about family she didn't have. He shook the hand anyway. "You're Ray's father." David nodded once. "And you're the boy she trusts." Liam swallowed. "She does." David leaned closer. "Good. Because when I can't be what she needs, you'll have to be." It wasn't a request. It was an order stitched in regret. Now in Ray's kitchen, Liam sat across from her. The baby monitor hummed soft static, filling the silence. "You've read it before," she said suddenly, voice sharper than the knife drying in the sink. Liam's eyes dropped. "I don't lie." His shoulders caved. "Yes." Ray felt her chest close. How he rubbed his temples, shame thick as oil. "He gave me a copy. Months before he passed. He said you'd never read it from him. He thought maybe if it came from me." Her chair scraped as she stood. "You had this letter while you told me I was too much. Too complicated. While you walked out, I was scared," he said. "I thought you thought what she snapped. That a letter from a man who abandoned me gave you permission to abandon me too." Her voice cracked the stillness. The baby stirred on the monitor, a thin cry spilling through. Ray turned instinctively toward the nursery. Liam rose too. "Let me help." She blocked him with her body. "No, you don't get to walk out and walk back in with my father's words in your pocket like keys." He flinched. The words landed, but he didn't leave. Later that night, Ray sat in the rocker, baby nestled to her chest. His tiny breath steadied her pulse. She traced the curve of his head, whispering into his skin. "Your father doesn't know how to stay, and mine never did either. But I will. I'll stay even when it costs me." The baby sighed asleep again. She kissed his hair and closed her eyes. Meanwhile, Liam sat in his car outside, engine off. He held his phone like it was a lifeline. The last voicemail from David Porter played again, raspy and urgent. "If you fail her, you fail me. Don't leave her alone in this. Promise me." And Liam had promised. But promises meant little when fear ruled the room. And fear was the only language he'd spoken since the day Ray told him she was pregnant. The next morning, Viv found Ray at the kitchen table again, staring at the letter. Her mother sighed. "You don't have to forgive him. Either of them." Ray rubbed her forehead. "But what if my son asks me about his grandfather one day? What do I say? That he left, then came back, then left again?" Viv squeezed her shoulder. "You say the truth. That love and failure can wear the same name, and that he deserved better." Ray whispered. "So did I." Viv kissed her temple. "Yes, baby, you did." That night, as rain battered the windows, Liam showed up again, soaked, shaking. Holding something in his hand Ray didn't recognize, a folded sheet of paper, old and creased. "What now?" she asked, exhausted. He unfolded it, voice unsteady. "He didn't just leave you a letter, Ray. He left me instructions." The instructions. The page trembled in Liam's hand. Not from the rain, not from his nerves, though both shook him raw. It was the paper itself. Old, soft from too many folds, edges nearly see-through. Ray stared. "Put it down." He obeyed, laying it flat on the table between them. The baby monitor pulsed softly behind Ray, each rustle from the crib, an anchor against the storm that wanted to drag her under. Viv crossed her arms, body squared toward Liam. If this is another excuse, boy, you need to turn around now. But Ray's eyes were locked on the page, her father's handwriting again. Same loops, same deliberate pressure on the R's. She read aloud. If she finds you, tell her I didn't die the way she thinks. Tell her it wasn't just leaving, it was running. And I was running from people who never forgave what I tried to expose. Her throat closed. She reread it silently. Her father hadn't only left, he'd fled. Ray, at 15, overhearing her mother whisper into the phone, "He's gone. Don't ask me where. Don't ask me why." She'd thought gone meant selfishness. She never considered it might mean survival. Viv's hand slammed the table. "Don't you dare," she said, eyes sharp on Liam. "Don't you dare plant lies in her head now that she finally has her own family to fight for." Liam shook his head. "I didn't make this up. He gave it to me. Said someone would come looking. Said Ray would be safer if she knew the truth first." Ray whispered safer from who silence answered. That night when the house was finally quiet, Ray unfolded the page again. Under the main lines in smaller handwriting, a name, J. Walthrop, and an address in D.C. She traced the letters like they might bite. Her father had left her breadcrumbs. Not apologies, not justifications, evidence. At dawn, Ray sat on the edge of her bed staring at the baby sleeping in his bassinet. Tiny fists curled against his cheeks, a perfect rhythm of breath. Her voice was low. "Do I chase ghosts when you need me here? Or do I stay here and never know why half of you walked away?" The baby sighed in his sleep as if reminding her both answers were wrong and both were hers to bear. Later, Ray carried the letter into the kitchen. Viv frowned instantly. "No." Ray steadied her voice. "Mom, if he died running from something, I need to know what it was. I need to know if it can still find us." Viv looked like she might argue, but her lips trembled. She reached for the coffee pot instead. "You're your father's daughter, after all." The words burned more than they comforted. Liam appeared in the doorway, pale from another sleepless night. "I'll go with you," he said. Ray froze. "You think one promise to a dead man makes you welcome again?" His voice broke. "No, but I think it makes me responsible." Viv scoffed, but Ray didn't. Not out loud. She hated how a part of her wanted him there, not for his sake, but because facing her father's shadow alone felt like drowning twice. The baby stirred, soft cries filling the room. Ray lifted him, cradling his warmth against her chest. She whispered into his hair, "We'll find the truth, even if it kills me." The name that followed the name haunted her. J. Walthrop. It clung to the corners of Ray's mind even when she rocked her son to sleep, even when Viv hummed old hymns in the kitchen, even when Liam lingered on the porch like an unwanted shadow. It wasn't just ink on paper, it was a door, and Ray hated herself for wanting to open it. 3 days later, the door opened first. A man in a gray suit sat in the waiting room of her OB's office when Ray walked in for the baby's follow-up. She noticed him immediately, clean haircut, too polished for the chipped vinyl chairs, a briefcase balanced like a weapon. When she stepped out of the exam room with her infant carrier, he rose. "Ms. Porter." Her spine stiffened. "Who's asking?" He extended a card. "Jonathan Walthrop, Department of Defense." Her pulse spiked. At home, Ray slammed the card on the table. Viv picked it up, squinting. "Lord." Liam's jaw tightened. "He found you." Ray glared at him. "No, he found us, because of that letter." Liam leaned forward. "Then we need to hear him out. He could know what your father was involved in." Viv's voice cut sharp. "Or he could be exactly what your father was running from." The baby stirred in the carrier. Ray touched his head instinctively. She couldn't decide if her father's ghost was protecting her or baiting her into the same trap. Ray, at 19, working late in the campus library, her laptop battery dying. An older man, her father, unexpected ghost-like, appearing at her table, sliding a $20 bill across. "You're smarter than me," he whispered. "Don't let them convince you otherwise." And then gone before she could ask who they were. Now the card burned in her palm. Walthrop wanted a meeting. He'd written it in neat pen on the back, "Tomorrow 10 a.m. Federal Building." Ray's stomach knotted. Viv muttered, "It smells like a trap." Liam said it smells like answers. Ray whispered it smells like both. That night, she rocked the baby until dawn. Her mind chased questions until her body ached. Why had her father trusted Liam with a copy of the letter? Why had Walthrop appeared now, not before? And why did Ray feel like the letter was less a confession? And more a summons morning broke with hard light. Ray stood before the mirror baby strapped against her chest, black blouse hiding the shake in her hands. Viv caught her in the hall. "Don't go. I have to." Her mother's eyes softened. "Then don't go alone." Behind them, Liam stepped forward. "I'll drive." Ray hated that she let him, hated it more when relief followed. The federal building loomed like a mausoleum. Inside, cold marble swallowed their footsteps. They waited in a gray office until the door opened. Jonathan Walthrop entered, briefcase in hand, his face unreadable. He sat, folded his hands, and spoke without preamble. "Your father didn't just run Miss Porter. He was silenced, and now you might be next." The file she wasn't supposed to see. Jonathan Walthrop's words hit like cold water. Silenced. Next. Ray's stomach turned as she clutched the strap of the baby carrier tighter. Viv stiffened in her chair. "You better start making sense, Mr. Walthrop, before I walk my daughter and grandson right back out of here." But Walthrop's eyes were locked on Ray. "He trusted me once. That trust got him killed. I'm not here to repeat the mistake." He placed the briefcase on the table, clicked it open, and slid a thin folder across. Ray hesitated. The paper looked ordinary, but she knew better. Ordinary things sometimes carried the sharpest edges. She opened it. Inside were surveillance photos, her father in a diner, her father at a bus stop, her father speaking to a man in uniform Ray didn't recognize. Dates scrawled in the margins just months before his disappearance. The last page made her throat close. A photo of her pregnant walking across campus, taken without her knowing. Her hand shook. "What is this evidence?" Walthrop said. "Your father stumbled onto something bigger than him. Military contracts falsified, reports, lives ruined to keep secrets alive. He was going to expose it. Instead, they buried him. And now he tapped the photo of Ray. "They're watching you." Liam leaned forward, face pale. "Why show us this now?" Walthrop's jaw clenched. "Because I couldn't protect your father, and I won't let his daughter pay the same price." Viv whispered, "Lord have mercy." Ray closed the folder, pressing her palm flat against it, as if holding it shut could contain the fear clawing up her spine. Her father hadn't abandoned her. He'd been hunted. And now she was carrying the target he left behind. Ray, 7 years old, asking her mother why they never had family pictures. Viv sighing, pulling her close. Because sometimes photographs are dangerous. They remind people you exist. At 7, Ray thought it meant her father didn't want to be reminded. Now she wondered if it meant someone else did. The baby whimpered in the carrier. Ray soothed him, her voice trembling. "He's not going to grow up like this. Hunted. Afraid." Walthrop's gaze softened. "Then you need to decide. Stay quiet, live small, and they might leave you alone. Or take up where your father left off and finish what he started." Ray snapped her head up. "You're asking me to risk my son's life for a man who never showed up for mine?" "No," Walthrop said quietly. "I'm asking you to risk it so your son doesn't have to fight the same battle when he's grown." Back home, Ray sat in the dark folder unopened on the table, the baby asleep against her chest. Viv dozed in the armchair. Liam stood by the window, restless. Finally, Ray spoke. "If I walk away, maybe we're safe. If I fight, maybe we change something. But if I do nothing, he grows up with the same shadow I did." Her voice broke, and I promised him I'd stay. Liam turned. "Then let me carry some of it." She stared at him. "Why?" "Because my father told you to know," he said, voice steady for once. "Because I should have chosen you when it mattered. Let me choose you now." The baby stirred. Ray kissed his hair, whispering into the curls, "You didn't ask for this, but maybe you were born for it." The house with eyes. The hum was too steady. At first, Ray thought it was the fridge, or maybe the old radiator. But then in the stillness of 2 a.m., she heard the click. A camera shutter. Her heart froze. She moved to the window, careful not to wake the baby in her arms. Pulled the curtain back an inch, headlights off. Engine barely idling. A car, parked across the street. A lens gleamed in the glow of the street lamp. Watching. By morning, Ray's paranoia had teeth. Every sound outside was someone listening. Every shadow in the yard was someone waiting. Viv noticed it first. "You're pacing grooves into the floor," she said, setting down her coffee. "They're out there," Ray whispered, watching. Viv didn't argue. She just set her jaw. "Then let them watch. They'll see you're not breaking." But Ray shook her head. "This isn't about me breaking. This is about them knowing I know." Liam entered from the porch, pale and tense. "They left this on the windshield," he said, holding up a plain envelope. Ray snatched it, ripped it open. Inside, a single photo, Ray holding the baby by the kitchen window, his tiny fist curled against her chest. On the back, "Stop reading. Stop asking. Stop or he grows up without you." Her knees weakened. Viv caught her elbow. "This isn't just watching," Ray said, voice trembling. "It's a warning." Ray, at 20, writing her first op-ed about systemic injustice, her professor warning truth makes enemies, Ray. But lies make corpses. She hadn't understood then. Now she did. By nightfall, Ray had the suitcase open. Baby clothes, diapers, a worn blanket Viv insisted they pack. Her hands shook as she zipped it. Viv's voice was sharp. "So you're running, I'm protecting him. Your father said the same thing," Viv snapped. "And look where it left you without him." The words sliced, but Ray kept folding, kept packing. Because Viv was right, and because that truth didn't change the danger breathing down their street. Liam blocked the doorway. "If you run, they win. They control the story. They erase your father twice, once from history, once from you." Ray glared. "And if I stay, my son grows up an orphan. I won't gamble him away for justice I can't even see." Liam's voice cracked. "Then let me gamble myself." The room stilled. Later, with the baby asleep, Ray sat at the kitchen table again. The folder from Walthrop beside her. The warning photo in her hand. Her father's words echoed from the letter. "One day you'll see me in the mirror and hate it." She did. Because she was staring at herself, now caught between the same choice he'd made, run or resist. And she hated that she understood him. At dawn, a knock rattled the door. Not loud, not frantic, polite, deadly. Ray froze. Viv grabbed the baby. Liam reached for the baseball bat by the couch. Through the glass, Ray saw a man in a dark coat, and behind him 2 others. Her chest tightened. She whispered to herself, to the baby, to the ghost of her father. "This is it." The knock that split the night. The knock came again, gentle, too gentle for threat, too steady for neighborly. Ray's breath caught. She could feel her son's heartbeat against her chest faster than her own. Viv held the baby, tighter eyes flashing like she was ready to fight death itself if it crossed the threshold. Liam gripped the bat, his knuckles pale. "Don't open it," Viv hissed. But Ray moved anyway. Something in the quiet, measured rhythm of that knock, it didn't sound like violence. It sounded like insistence. She unlocked the door. The man stepped in slowly. Tall, late 50s coat, damp from the drizzle outside. His face was lined not just with years, but with weight, like someone who'd carried silence too long. He removed his hat. "Ms. Porter, I worked with your father." Ray's knees almost buckled. Viv bristled. "And who exactly are you?" He extended a worn ID wallet. "Daniel Ross, investigative journalist." Ray frowned. "Why are you here now?" Ross looked around, eyes pausing at the baby, at Liam, at the folder on the table. "Because the story your father died for is about to be buried for good. And you're the only person who can stop it." Ross set a thin flash drive on the table. "Everything your father collected. Names, documents, proof. He gave me part, kept the rest. After he disappeared, I held on to mine, waiting, hoping someone would finish it." Ray stared at the drive like it was radioactive. "My father wanted me to have this," Ross nodded. "He wanted the truth in your hands, said you'd know when you were ready." Ray 11, overhearing her mother on the phone. "He left you a gift, Ray, just not the kind you wanted." At 11, she thought it meant abandonment. Now she wondered if it meant evidence. Viv slammed her palm on the table. "You want her to risk her life again? She's got a baby. Her fight is survival, not chasing the ghosts of dead men." Ross didn't flinch. "Survival without truth is just waiting for the next lie to kill you." The words hit Ray harder than she wanted to admit. She looked at her baby, his tiny fist curled against Viv's shoulder, then at the drive. then at Liam, who looked terrified but also strangely resolved. That night, Ray sat alone at the kitchen table, laptop open, flash drive plugged in. Her father's files unfolded like a confession written in fire. Emails between contractors, false reports, black budgets hiding in plain sight, and a name that kept repeating: Walthrop. Her chest tightened. Jonathan Walthrop wasn't just a Department of Defense official. He was at the center of it. Her father hadn't trusted him. He'd feared him. She whispered to the empty kitchen, "I'm holding your war now, Dad, and I don't know if I'll survive it." Behind her, Liam's voice came low. "Then let me fight beside you this time." Ray turned. His eyes weren't pleading anymore. They were steady. For the first time, she believed him. The baby stirred in the other room, crying out like a warning. Ray stood, closing the laptop. Her father had left her the truth. But the truth was, a torch, and carrying it would burn everything she touched. Still, as she picked up her son, she knew one thing with terrifying clarity: she would never hand that torch back. The last choice. Dawn cracked open with blue light and sirens far away. Ray sat at the kitchen table, flash drive clenched in her fist like it could cut her if she let go. The baby slept in his crib, tiny chest rising steady. Viv brewed coffee, every movement sharp, deliberate, like she could keep the world steady if she stirred hard enough. Liam paced by the window, his body a shield, his eyes restless. Then the car came. Same sedan, same hum. But this time it didn't park across the street. It pulled into the driveway. Jonathan Walthrop stepped out. No suit today, just dark clothes, an expression as cold as the marble offices he ruled from. He didn't knock. He opened the door like he owned it. Ray rose, flash drive in her palm. "You don't get to walk into my house," she snapped. His eyes flicked to the baby's crib, then back to her. "You have something that doesn't belong to you." Ray's voice shook, but she didn't lower it. "It belonged to my father. It belongs to me now." Walthrop sighed. "Your father didn't understand. He thought he was saving people. But truth doesn't save. It burns. And it burns everyone holding it." Viv stood, fists clenched. "Then maybe it's time you burned." Liam stepped closer to Ray, his voice low. "We can run. Right now." But Ray didn't move. She looked at Walthrop, the man her father feared, the man her father couldn't defeat. And she thought of the letter. "If you ever have a child, tell them I'm sorry. Tell them they will never be abandoned by me because I will live in the hands that hold them. In yours." Her son would grow up knowing the truth, or not at all. She placed the flash drive on the table. For a moment, Walthrop's shoulders eased. He reached for it, and then Ray's hand covered it again. Her voice cut sharp. "Not today." With her other hand, she slid her phone across the table. The drive had already been uploaded, sent, copied, safe. Walthrop's eyes flared. Rage, realization. Too late. "You," he started. But sirens grew louder. Tires screeched. Federal agents swarmed the porch, storming inside. Not for Ray. For him. Ross had moved faster than she imagined. In the chaos, Viv scooped up the baby, pressing kisses to his head. Liam stood frozen, bat still in his hands like he'd forgotten he held it. And Ray exhaled for the first time in months. Later, when the house finally quieted, Ross returned. "You did what your father couldn't," he said softly. "You finished it." Ray shook her head. "No, I just survived it." Ross smiled faintly. "Sometimes that's the bravest ending." That night, Ray sat in the rocker, baby curled against her chest. She touched the letter on the side table edges, worn now from her hands. Her voice was quiet, steady. "He left me broken pieces. But you, little one, you'll grow up whole. Because I'll never leave you wondering if you were too much." The baby stirred, tiny fingers gripping hers. Ray's tears fell, but this time they weren't born of loss. They were a promise. Final lines. Her father's ghost had lived in the silence of her life. Her son's laughter would live in the sound of her survival, and that was enough.